Hello and welcome to today's video. I promised you all I would be doing a thriller tier ranking video, so here it is. Yes, there's not a ton on this list, unfortunately, because I didn't read as many thrillers as I would have liked to this year. So I do have a couple horror books included that I would personally say they're in the thriller subgenre, but yeah, that's my little preface. I do really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really excited to rank all of these and share it with you guys, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we go. This is my list of thrillers. Let's go over the tier names that I have. First one, top tier, I called Would Sell My Soul For. So this is obviously the best of the best, my favorites of the year. They will go in this top tier. The second tier we have Guilty Pleasure Faves. This means like really good thrillers in my opinion, but maybe objectively they aren't amazing or they aren't great, or you know, they could be a little bit controversial or problematic is the word I'm thinking of. Like, they're guilty pleasure faves, so like they're great in my opinion, but because overall maybe they're not the best, they have to go here. The third one we have They Tried. So this is very average. These are the okay thrillers, the ones that I don't really have strong feelings towards either way. The next one is Regrettable / Forgettable. So, you know, that is self-explanatory. Lastly, we have Why Does This Exist? So these are far beyond regrettable and forgettable. I just wish they never existed, and I wish I could just erase them from my life. So those are the tiers. I'm gonna do this pretty quickly, so I'm not gonna talk too long on each of them, but since there's not a ton, this hopefully shouldn't be too long. Okay, first we have The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This one I think I gave 3 stars, so that is the definition of They Tried. I didn't love it, didn't hate it, so there's probably going to be a lot of those that go in this middle tier. But then we have Survive the Night, and if you know how I feel about Survive the Night already, this might be a little bit, I don't know, I feel like this is a little bit hard. I know a lot of people hate this book, but if you've been here, if you've watched my content, you know that I love it. I love it a lot. You know what? I think I have to put it there in Guilty Pleasure Faves, because if you watched my top 10 thrillers of the year video, you will see that it made the number 2 spot. So I really, really enjoyed that book. Would I sell my soul for it? Yeah, I think I would. But it's also just like a guilty pleasure fave, because I know lots of people hate it. But then again, I listened to their opinions and their thoughts on Survive the Night, and it never swayed me at all. When people made their points, do you hear that? That's Benji chewing his bone up against the wall outside of my bedroom. He always finds a way to freaking interrupt my videos. He always manages to do that. Are you kidding? Benji! Stop! I swear. Okay. What was I saying? Like, even after hearing everybody's thoughts about Survive the Night being bad for whatever reason, I still think it's great. So I'm gonna keep it actually in Would Sell My Soul For, because I do love it. Same it goes for No Exit. We know I'm even going to put that before Survive the Night, because that is my number 1 favorite thriller. No question about that. 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. I'm gonna put in Regrettable and Forgettable. I listened to it on an audio, but I regret reading it. I think it was kind of a waste of my time, and I definitely forgot everything about it. So next is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. We're gonna put this in They Tried, which really hurts to do that because I love Riley Sager. So to say that he tried with this book, he did exponentially more than try. Like, he did a fantastic job with this book. So it feels very rude to put it in that tier. Maybe I should have called it something else, but it's fine. I tried, I guess. Was very middle ground with this book. However, I think Riley Sager did an amazing job with it, and it was a very genius story, very genius concept in all of it. But I couldn't love it more than a 3.5. So I'm going to have to put it in the middle tier. Next, we have 56 Days. I'm gonna put it in Guilty Pleasure Faves, not because I think there's anything wrong with it, except for the fact that it's like a quarantine thriller. Basically, the whole thing is revolved around the pandemic, so I wouldn't sell my soul for that necessarily, but I did give it 5 stars. I did really, really enjoy it and was very surprised by it because I have never heard of or read anything from that author before. So I'm going to put it there. Next, we have Ace of Spades, and I'm going to have to put it in Would Sell My Soul For, because that is an extremely powerful YA thriller that again took me by surprise, and it was just excellent. It was great. Final Girls by Riley Sager, I'm going to put in Guilty Pleasure Faves, because this is Riley Sager's first novel, and there's been some toss-up about people either really liking it or not loving it because it's his first work and they don't jive with the writing style very much as opposed to his other books. So they kind of blame it on the fact that it's his first one, so it's not a favorite by most, but I really liked it. It was the first one of his that I read, so maybe that helped, but I did really like the idea of a final girl, and I think the way Riley Sager took the story was very entertaining and I had a great time. I gave that 4 stars. Next, we have another Riley Sager. I read lots of his books. This is the last one on this list though. So we have The Last Time I Lied. I didn't love this one as much as the other. Well, I liked it more than Home Before Dark, but not as much as Final Girls and Survive the Night. So I think where it's gonna have to go is here. The Last Time I Lied. The order of them in each row I guess doesn't matter, but I feel like it needs to go before Home Before Dark just because I know that I enjoyed it more, but this one I didn't necessarily enjoy more, so I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, there's that. Next is Verity by Colleen Hoover. Guilty Pleasure Faves. This one I would not sell my soul for just because I didn't love the ending as much as I was like anticipating. It fell a little bit flat. I was a little disappointed by the ending, so it will have to go there. I still managed to give it like a 4.75 just because that last little bit just didn't push me over the edge and I wasn't wowed by the way that she ended it. Then we have Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. And this one is really hard because I want to put it in either of these two. Because I feel like it is regrettable slash forgettable. It's not as forgettable, I feel like, because I spent so much time reading this book over the span of like 5 weeks because it was for a family book club pick. But the reason I want to put it in Why Does This Exist is because I feel like it's a 400+ page book, supposed to be a mystery thriller, and the twist makes me question my entire life. Like, why does this exist? Why did I read it? What was the point? It was a big ol' waste of time. But leading up to the plot twist, I loved the writing, I loved the characters. It was fun, but I think I have to put it in Why Does This Exist because it just was way too long for nothing, for no reason. It was not worth it. However, I think I gave it 2.75. So like what I did like about it managed to like hold on to that 2.75, I guess, but you know, it just, no. Next we have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and I think this one is gonna have to go in regrettable and forgettable because it is a domestic thriller, and I found out that I don't like domestic thrillers, or most domestic thrillers, although I haven't read enough to like really know that, but this one kind of solidified it for me that I don't like any that are like this one. So I guess it's not regrettable in the terms of me like learning from this book, but learning my preferences from the book. But it is forgettable because I couldn't really tell you the plot other than like what the title tells you. Behind closed doors, they seem like the perfect couple, they have a perfect marriage, but behind closed doors they don't. That's really it. And then there's domestic abuse as a main plot line, and I don't love that. So I think it's gonna land there. Oh, last time that I lied is still here. That's annoying. Okay, whatever. And then The Last Mrs. Parrish is funny because it's similar in the same vein as Behind Closed Doors, so it's just gonna go right behind it. Then we have Rock, Paper, Scissors, and it's gonna be They Tried. It's gonna have to go there. Kind of again with how I felt with Home Before Dark. I think they did an excellent job, so They Tried feels a little harsh, but I think that Alice Feeney tried in terms of trying to come up with a different and unique plot twist. I think she did accomplish a different, unique plot twist that I can appreciate and that I can admire, but I can't be 100% on board with how it played out in the grand scheme of things for me to consider it any sort of favorite. I think I gave it a 3.5. I was just a little disappointed. I feel like it could have gone in a different direction for it to have been more groundbreaking and a little bit more exciting and a little bit more unique and different. But it didn't, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to say that They Tried. Next, Security. Like I hated that book. I couldn't. Why does that exist? Like I don't know. I don't even. Yeah. Why does it exist? I don't even know what else to say. Catherine House. Guilty pleasure fave for sure. This one is very lowly rated on Goodreads. Lots of people do not like it, but I enjoyed it. I was very pleased with what the story was about and the setting of the story and the weirdness of it. I really liked it. So guilty pleasure fave for sure. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I'm going to have to put in They Tried because this is definitely the epitome of They Tried. Grady Hendrix twisted this story in such a perverse way that is not good in my opinion. I think the way that the last like third of the book plays out is uncalled for. I think like I really was loving this up until like the 200-ish page mark, and then it all went downhill and it was a big old dumpster fire of a book. So definitely They Tried. I wish it was better because I loved it leading up to when I didn't love it. And then there's the Final Girl Support Group. I'm not gonna say why does this exist for this one, although I really did hate it. I'm gonna put it in regrettable and forgettable because I can understand like why it exists, sure, like realistically and literally like why it exists, fine, but it was not good. I don't know what it is about it. Like maybe I don't jive well with Grady Hendrix writing because I didn't love the two that I read from him this year, but there was just something about that one that really pissed me off. So regrettable and forgettable because I do regret it. And maybe someday I will completely forget about it. I don't know. And then we have Horrid, which is more of the horror genre, which I forgot to mention, I guess. Catherine House is a little bit, Southern Book Club's Guide is, Final Girl Support Group is, and then we have Horrid, which is a YA horror that I was pleasantly surprised by, but I don't know where to put this one. That's kind of like a really tough decision for me. I don't know where to put it. Maybe we'll skip and come back to that one. Next we have Sadie by Courtney Summers. I wasn't a fan of this one. I read this in the beginning of 2021. I'm gonna put it in regrettable and forgettable because I don't remember anything about it other than there's like a podcast element to it. But it was one that I listened to on audio, which I've heard it's a great audiobook, but I beg to differ. I did not enjoy it. Then we have The Silent Patient. I'm going to put in guilty pleasure fave because I think this is a very great beginner thriller that I read in the beginning of my thriller explorations. I wouldn't sell my soul for it just because it's a beginner thriller and like there's nothing amazing about it. It is a domestic thriller, so I'm surprised that I gave this one 5 stars, so I'm really surprised that there was such a huge contrast between my reading experience with this one and Behind Closed Doors and The Last Mrs. Parrish. It was just vastly different enjoyment levels between them. So I really loved The Silent Patient. Great beginner thriller. Definitely recommend if you haven't gotten to it yet. I really loved it. So guilty pleasure fave for sure. We Were Liars. Why does this exist? Extremely regrettable though too, so it's below that. Like, why does that exist? I know it's a very controversial one and there's lots of mixed reviews. People love it, people hate it. I definitely am on the hate it spectrum. White Smoke. Let's see. White Smoke, I'm gonna put in They Tried. I think there definitely could have been something better done with this story. It is YA, so just speaking in my personal preferences, not a fan of YA. It's not something that I've learned that I'm going to gravitate towards too much. I definitely love adult thrillers, or just adult in general. But White Smoke could have been great. It was the only Tiffany D. Jackson I'd ever read, but I didn't love it. I didn't see the point of it. It was very mediocre in my opinion, so They Tried. Okay, let's go back to Horrid. Surprisingly enough, I think I'm actually gonna put it in guilty pleasure faves because I remember reading this around Halloween time and I read it on a super rainy, stormy night and I had a bunch of candles lit and the vibes were there, like the whole atmosphere was there. Okay, I need to get Benji to freaking move. At the time that I read Horrid, it was at the perfect time. So I think that this one really, really worked for me, but it totally counteracts, is that the right word? What I just said about not liking YA. This one surprisingly worked for me and I think it's a guilty pleasure fave, even though it's not like an all-time favorite and it's not something that I will constantly talk and rave about. I just really enjoyed the visceral reactions and emotions it brought out in me with the writing. I think I really enjoyed Katrina Leno's writing, so I'm gonna have to look into more of her books and see if she can do that for me again in some way. But yeah, I think that's just what really went well for me in that book was the writing. So guilty pleasure fave. Okay, and then finally we have The Woman in the Window, which is not regrettable for me because I had had a copy of this book for so long that I never read it. It was like one of the first books I ever owned before I started booktube and before I started like my collecting of books. I had this one I got it from a thrift store for like $2 back when I only had like a small handful of books. This one and The Last Time I Lied I'd had for like a couple years. This is totally random and off topic, but in case you're interested, I got The Last Time I Lied from Book of the Month back in 2017 or whenever that was, 2016, I can't remember. I had held on to it for so long before actually finally reading it this year, and then same for Women in the Window. So I don't regret reading that book. I'm glad that I finally did get through it, but I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars, so I'm gonna have to put it in They Tried. But I was happy that I read it. I just didn't love the premise, or the characters were very unlikable, and the plot twist was not my favorite, not like the best ever, but it was okay. So that's that. Although I am afraid not afraid, but just like a little bit cautious, like gonna tread lightly with Riley Sager's new book coming out called The House Across the Lake. Basically sounds just like the exact same premise of The Woman in the Window. So we'll see what goes on there. We'll see how he does that, but it's like almost the exact same thing, kind of. Feels like it is, based on the synopsis. So that'll be interesting to find out how it goes. But yeah, that is my list. Look at how perfectly even it is. It looks quite nice, and no particular tier is overwhelmingly longer than the rest. Definitely does not match up with my ratings, does not match up entirely with my initial thoughts of the books, I guess, because it feels weird to see Apples Never Fall at the bottom, but I really do wonder, like, why does that story exist? And why did it get nominated for Goodreads Choice Awards Best Thriller, Mystery Thriller? And then the last thing he told me won the Goodreads Choice Awards. I don't know. So it's just like, just kind of a weird mix, but like I said, doesn't match up with my ratings. It doesn't entirely match up with my ratings, is what I'm saying. But anyways, that's what it looks like. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you agree with any of these. If you think something else should be in a different tier, I'd love to debate with you about it in the comments. But yeah, this was fun. I'm glad I finally filmed it so I can finally get this up for you guys to watch. And Happy New Year.